So these quotations are from Discovering Choices. Uh, Page 37. I've given up the childhood fantasy of thinking either one of us has to be perfect. Today, I choose to enjoy every little step of progress. And then from page 49. Although I am far better off today than I was 2 years ago, I'm finally able to acknowledge that parts of me may never be put back together just right. Progress, not perfection, was a very hard concept for me to grasp, but it has become the key to my ongoing recovery, as well as the success in my marriage. And then page 122. My perfectionist ideals had held my spirit hostage for too long. The realization that my best was good enough gave me permission to ease up on myself. Only by accepting and loving who I was, right where I was, would I continue to grow. And you know what? I love Al-Anon literature for all sorts of reasons, but one of the reasons is we have indexes, so you can look stuff up really easily. That's very, very helpful. So I've been in, I'm not going to do a whole history, but I have been in recovery since, January 1993. It's foggy. I'd been busy for a few years and things were foggy in January, February 1993, but I've been in recovery since then. Um, and the household I grew up in, we didn't have alcoholics or addicts physically there. Well, I say that. Um, Certain facts have come to light. I don't know if you come from families where everything is undercover and then facts come to light decades later, and then things make sense. You know, when someone is there, but they're not there, and then you suddenly realize why it felt like there was no one there because there was no one there, even though the body was there. Some stuff came to light. But there are alcoholics and addicts dotted all through my family, and we're not allowed to mention them. We're not allowed to see them. We're not allowed to talk about them. The code was this. No one ever said, oh, so and so, he's an alcoholic. We said, so and so is lazy. And then as people in the family grew up, they would be diagnosed as like us, efficient, effective, full of foresight, or lazy. And if they were lazy, you knew that they were having fun and they would get into trouble and then they wouldn't be invited anymore. That was how yeah, those were the two categories. And my poor old mother, she's still alive at 1019. Um, she would classify everyone into these two camps. And I was preparing for I know in AA they don't prepare, they just do everything off the on the hoof, as it were, but I like to prepare. The steps haven't worked that well on me. I like to prepare. Um, and this morning I wrote down, so, okay, so what are the relevant childhood beliefs I had that that are relevant to perfectionism? And if I could, and no one ever said this, all of this stuff was in the air. I've understood what was going on in that house retrospectively. And I found 7 beliefs, and they're these. Number one, other people are negligent and incompetent. Number two, I have to look further ahead than anyone else. If I'm not in the crow's nest, looking far into the future, no one else is going to. So I need to keep my eye, I need to sleep with one eye open. The third one, things are not going to be okay. That was very clear. Um, If I don't sort this out, no one else will. There was a little gang in the family of the sorters out. We knew who we were, and we knew who the other ones were. And then we'd have a plan with everyone. Everyone has a script in the plan. Even the negligent, incompetent people have to pull their weight somehow. They have to do something. You give them a little thing to do, they fail, you punish them, but at least you've tried to involve them in the process. And actually, it's 6 points. Unless everything works out perfectly, we're doomed. So that's the plan. We've got a plan for making sure nothing bad happens, or that if something bad happens, we've covered every possible contingency. Now, this made me a little bit nervous. It's no wonder at the age of like 12, I was wearing little bow ties like a grown-up. I got on super well with grown-ups and really badly with other children because they didn't seem to be busy in effective and important ways as I thought children should be. I thought children should be achieving a lot of things the whole time and performing. That was the whole idea. If you can perform perfectly, they can't get you. So these were the beliefs, and that pattern accompanied me into adulthood and into recovery. So what life was like, 10, 20 years later, having had these beliefs instilled in me, was waking up every morning with as though there was a mountain in front of me of this endless range of objectives that had to be achieved. My life consisted in slavish work towards attaining these objectives. A friend of mine, I never remember the date, but it goes something like this. In 1860, whatever, the slaves were freed, pass the word. No one told me that I was brought up with the idea that I am a slave to these objectives that have to be fulfilled perfectly. I'm okay only when I'm super productive and flawless. So those magical days when you do get 1,014 things done, including a souffle, and the whole house is clean, and because you manage to do it once, like a broken clock is right 2 times a day, just because there's this occasional day when you do the work of 7 people, then the little perfectionist says, well, if you can do it once, you should be able to do it every day. And I remember once I came first in something at school at the I don't know, I was 10 or something, and my mother said, she's French, she which makes the Parisian also, which makes things worse. She said, if you can come first once, you can come first every time. And if you don't, it's your fault. I mean, she literally said that. This was not some subliminal message. This was not telegraphed. This was an instruction. Um, if something would go wrong, I would literally feel physically nauseous. My least favorite word in English is feedback. You know, when you get an email and in the subject line it's got the word feedback. I have a visceral reaction to this because if there is something wrong, the dam has been breached and we're Netherlands 1950, whatever, we're going to be flooded. Nothing is allowed to go wrong. A friend of mine says I should have gone into risk management, and I think there's something to that. Um, it's like I have a friend of mine characterizes my mind. He says you have a department called the risk management department, which is run by this incredibly neurotic woman called Janine, who has a clipboard and a team. And the slightest thing happens, and the whole department whirs into action. And until they do not rest. This department does not rest. No leave is ever granted. Um, this whole way of thinking could not be dislodged with an act of the will. I couldn't snap my fingers. I was given a bumper sticker by my friend Tom, which said, "Oh, lighten up." And it's hilarious, but I can't just lighten up. That's not something I can just flick the switch and it's done. Um, the this gets worse. It gets worse before it gets better because other people, I was basically taught to classify people as wonderful or awful, and there is nothing in between. And you're wonderful until you're awful, and then we don't talk to you. And I see this playing out in my whole family. I don't keep the records anymore, but I used to keep a list of who's talking to who and who's not talking to who, so you can't say, so you don't say the wrong thing. And if you talk to one of the people that someone else is not talking to, then they stop talking to you because you're siding with the enemy. So very black and white thinking, the whole world divided into the two camps of the people who are wonderful and the people who are not. And you've got to be careful. Take notes is the message there. And being physically repelled by the flaws in other people, I would see some kind of really minor character flaw and feel a physical repulsion, like I'm going to be infected by it in some way. Um, how did the steps help with this? Oh, okay. Footnote, the steps sorted this out. This that whole system is still available to me. It's just not operational most of the time. The software is still installed. It just doesn't get loaded up anywhere near as frequently as it used to. So I need things put really simply or I go nuts. Step one. This, as I gesture in a general way towards my life, was not working. This is not working. It's a binary question. Either it's working or it's not. It was not working. Step two, there is a different way to look at this. And if there is a different way to look at this, there's a different way to behave. The three things I can change are my beliefs, my thinking, and my behavior. Now, I can only change those with the direction of the higher power and with the power of the higher power, but nonetheless, those are the three things I have agency over. I can negotiate situations with other people, but I can't fundamentally change them. Like, stuff can be done in the world, but only with the world's cooperation, only acting in accordance with its nature. I can't change its nature. The only thing I can change, my beliefs, my thinking, my behavior. Step three offered me the idea that I don't have to have that system that I talked about as my higher power. I could have something else other than my rule book, because that's really what it was. It was a rule book, and it was a merciless higher power. I could have an actual higher power, which was which all I had to do was I had to serve the higher power, not other people, and not me, but the higher power, on the basis that if I did what the higher power wanted, that would be for the good of all anyway. So I kind of didn't even need to figure out, like intellectually, what was good for other people, what was good for me. All I had to do was ask again and again every morning, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do next? I've done that. What shall I do next? And then weirdly, everything worked out. This shouldn't be true, but it is. Inventory and amends were all about basically cataloging my the incorrect, in other words, unhelpful beliefs, thinking patterns, and behavior patterns, and apologizing where necessary. For some reason, I don't get sprung from the prison unless I apologize where necessary. I don't get sprung from the prison unless I let other people be the way they are, which is really what forgiveness is. It isn't, oh, you're a terrible person, but I'm going to sort of slather forgiveness on you like wallpaper paste or something. No, it's withdrawing the judgment in the first place. So however you are is fine. You just knock yourself out. I might not choose to be around it, but knock yourself out. I'm not going to judge it. That's what when I forgave, when I apologized, those two cords tying me to the crazy people were snipped. Um, how do I live today? It's so embarrassingly, it's so simple, it's embarrassing. I've already said it. I ask the higher power, what shall I do today? And then I get on with it and try and keep my mind present to whatever task is in front of me. What is the substance? The substance is step 12. I'll come to the new attitudes in a moment, which is really the spiritual awakening, but it's really uh, carrying the message of the 12 steps to other people who are remotely interested and being constructive in other areas of my life. Not useful in the sense of what other people think is useful, but constructive in terms of what the higher power guides me to do. Sometimes what the higher power guides me to do is stuff which looks useful to other people. Sometimes it doesn't look useful to anyone, but it's important somehow. And I discover afterwards it's really important that I do yoga. If I don't do yoga for however long a day, I'm like the Tin Man after a week. I've got to that age. There, constructive action, which may involve other people or it may not. Some new attitudes which have helped me, and I'm just going to run. I'm sort of running out of time, so I'm just going to run through these fairly quickly. So my job every day is just to do the tasks of the day. Very occasionally, I look ahead. So the risk management department still has a function, but I just pop in occasionally rather than living in there and say, right, let's just cast ahead in each area. Is there any risk which needs to be mitigated? And then come up with the actions that I need to take and then let go. So I parachute into the future occasionally and parachute back out again so that I can stay in the day without being negligent with my life. So step 3 is not about being negligent. It's not about not having a pension. It's not about not having insurance. It's not about not building a career in order that I can live. It's not about not doing those. It's about not living in that planning. I'm in the action business today, not the results business. And that's where perfectionism is about results. Whereas if I'm in the effort business, if I'm in the action business, whatever effort I'm able to make today is enough by virtue of the fact it's what I managed to do. There are days when I do the work of 7 people. There are days I do the work of no people. On the days I'm able to do the work only of no people, that's fine too. That was clearly enough. So whatever happens, I might shoot for whatever, but whatever happens was enough. The results are none of my business, except in as far as they inform my efforts. If something goes wrong at work, if it turns out a piece of work is sloppy, I do need to adjust my procedures to stop it happening again. But the results are not, they're not they're not like a stock exchange index for how much I'm worth as a person or any of that rubbish that I was brought up with. My identity and value and purpose are in God, which means I'm spirit, so I can't be harmed. That's my identity. I happen to be living in a physical form right now. Anne L says death is a fairly major change of address, and that's the attitude I take towards my physical circumstances. I'm here for now. I'm going to move somewhere else at some point. If you don't believe that, that's fine. I don't know where I'm going to be moving to, but I'm temporarily here. Identity in the higher power, my value, and this solved it for me. I'm of infinite value because I exist, but so is everyone else. So are the people in the other room today. They're of infinite value because they exist. Um, and my purpose is in God. I don't need to figure out what it is. I just need to ask God what to do today. What the purpose is of what I do today, none of my business. I don't need to figure that out. I just need to know what actions do I do today, and I can only choose between the available actions. God's will is always what is possible. If it's not possible, it wasn't God's will. Phew! So it's impossible to fail. Amazing. It's impossible to fail. Um, Other people are strange like me. It's okay for them to be strange. It's okay for me to be strange. Other people come and go. A friend of mine said, uh, everyone eventually, what did he say? Changes, leaves, or dies. But there's always someone that the higher power always provides people. A lot of people have come into my life, a lot of people have gone. I don't need to have this perfect plan, which I then keep in place forever. I can trust that the higher power will give whatever is needed into my life. Other people don't need to be fixed or changed or controlled. I don't need to get my help all over people. Um, but it's okay to set boundaries. I have 5 types of boundary. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. It's okay to say to people, I don't want to do it. I can say to people, can you stop that? I can say to people, can you start something? Can you do something? I can say, could you do this but differently? I only get a certain number of vouchers for boundaries, so I spend them wisely. Uh, you do what you do, I do what I do. If we want to do something together, that's fine. Um, Tradition 4 in action. So I don't need to have perfect relationships. If they're available for something, great. If they're not, great. My other half is sometimes super available, sometimes not available at all. None of my business. I don't have this. There's a line in the big book about we wives have this notion of this cherished vision. Cherished vision, isn't that a great phrase? This cherished vision of basically what the husband is going to be once we fix them up a little bit. Like you're gonna fix them up and sell them, like a house or something. I've got rid of this is a fixer up or I'll be out of here in 6 months. Um, I don't have that. So my other half is strange, I'm strange. It's fine. No one needs to be fixed. Um, and everything is fine as it is. Everything, I can be okay even though everything's a mess, which is the great lesson of Al-Anon. I'm going to stop there.